Hey guys, so today I'm going to talk about a book called The Power Broker, which was written by Robert A. Caro. And this is one of my top 10 favorite books of all time. And I'm excited to share some of my thoughts and takeaways. And yeah, I want to talk about what this book is, who it's about, and why I think you should read it. I'm pretty new to YouTube and uploading videos. So if you could like this video and hit the subscribe button, and let me know down in the comments below what feedback you have for me, because I'm planning on making more of these videos. All right, let's talk about the book. So The Power Broker was published in 1974. It's the definition of a brick. So as you can see, my copy has 1,200 pages, and it is a very small font. It's 700,000 words. I also own the audiobook, and the audiobook is over 66 hours long. I've seen a lot of praise about the book from all sorts of people, and probably most notably, President Obama commented that The Power Broker and reading it when he was younger helped shape his views about politics. So the book is about a man named Robert Moses, who was one of the most politically powerful men who ever lived. And he molded and shaped the city of New York single-handedly, and he was also known as the master builder. Starting in 1924 and going into the mid-1960s, Robert Moses had tremendous power and influence on the city and state of New York. He held 12 different titles in his lifetime, and many were at the same time. He is now known most notably as the New York City Parks Commissioner, and he also was the president of numerous transportation departments in and around New York City. And here's the thing, Robert Moses was never elected to public office. And here in America and in a democracy, political power is supposed to be won at the polls. But Robert Moses somehow was able to gain the power and influence to shape one of the greatest cities in the world, all while bypassing the democratic process. That's kind of what the book wants to show, is also that, power held in one person's hands is never a good idea. And it really talks about transportation in the book. The book makes the statement that when Robert Moses entered into public office, New York City had one of the best subways in the world, and when he left it, the subway was one of the worst in the world. And Robert Moses focused entirely on expressways and highways and roads and tunnels. And the city, it outgrew those things, and it needed more public transportation. But because Robert Moses liked the automobile, New York City got more roads. I want to give you guys an idea of what Robert Moses did, what he accomplished, and what projects he completed. I'm going to go through a short list to give you an idea. And I'll be honest, this could be an hour-long video just talking about every single thing that he did or what he had his hands on. And that's half the reason why the book is so long, is that he just did so many things and he built so many things. But here's a quick list. He built 627 miles of highways in and around New York. He built 15 expressways, 13 bridges, and these bridges were built on a colossal scale. One of them, the Triborough Bridge, the book notes that it took 5,000 men and around 31 million hours to complete, and that's just one bridge. While he was in power, New York gained 2.6 million acres of new parks. He designed and built Jones Beach State Park. He built Shea Stadium, the Lincoln Center. He built large hydroelectric dams such as the Niagara Power Project. He was instrumental in bringing the UN headquarters to Manhattan. He organized the 1964 World's Fair. He created or recreated every single park in New York City, and he built over 600 playgrounds. He also built over 150,000 housing units, which housed a population of 550,000 people. And just to give you a little scale, in America, there are only 32 cities that have a population greater than the housing which Robert Moses built. He also displaced almost 500,000 people to build his projects and his roads. This is just a small sample of everything that Robert Moses did. The Power Broker goes into incredible depth, telling the stories of all the projects and accomplishments that Robert Moses made in his life. Like any biography, we get a good look at Robert Moses' life from the beginning until the end. So we get a lot of history about his ancestors, and we just go through time as he gets more and collects more power. In The Power Broker, there are two main themes that run throughout the book. The first theme is the city of New York and how it changed during the lifetime of Robert Moses. And the second theme is how Robert Moses himself changed throughout his lifetime. And the catalyst for both of these transformations is power. I believe the book makes the argument that power corrupts, And it gives the example of Robert Moses's life. And by the end of his life, he had accumulated so much power, and that the pursuit of that power had somehow corrupted him. And as the subtitle of the book says, led to the fall of New York. So why should you read this book? Political power affects all of us. Robert Moses ruled on a dramatic scale, but the decisions and policies of our elected officials, and sometimes not elected officials, they affect our lives. Most of my life, I think I lived in a bubble regarding this thought. The thought that political power on a city and state and national level could somehow affect my life. But the book helped me to see that where I live, the route I take to work, the transportation options available to me, the parks I frequent, all those places and all those things were the result of political power. So if you're interested in cities and urban planning and in politics and how things get done, or even if you're a fan of biographies in general, you need to read this book. I want to talk about Robert A. Caro really quickly. I've read every single book that he's written, and he hasn't written many books. So The Power Broker was his first book, and after The Power Broker, he dedicated the rest of his life to researching and writing about President Lyndon Johnson. And he's written 4 books so far about the life of Lyndon Johnson, and they are masterful. They are just as good as The Power Broker. And what I really like about Robert A. Caro is, well, there's 2 themes that kind of dictate his approach to writing. The first is to turn every page, and that applies to his research. So he reads everything he can, everything written by his subjects and everything written about his subjects, and he spends a lot of his time doing that research. The other thing he does is he tells both sides of the story. And I really, really appreciate this. And how it's manifested in The Power Broker is when we think of, building a large project like a bridge or building an expressway, we think of this grand, colossal thing that was built, and we can look at the numbers that it cost and how many people it took to build it and where it goes and how long. But we don't always see, well, what about the people who are displaced? Who was affected by those kind of decisions? Those stories aren't seen and told as often. And Robert Caro did a great job of doing that research. He gives a voice to those people who were displaced. And I'll just tell a quick story from the book that kind of shows this principle. So there was a family, and this was on Long Island, and the family owned a really small farm. And Robert Moses was designing this expressway, which would go directly through the farm and cut it in half. And the farmers, it would take them 30 minutes of a drive just to get to the other side of their farm. And so they go to Robert Moses and they tell them their issue. And they're like, if you can just move the farm a little bit south, just a mile or 2 south, we can get by. And Robert Moses says, no, the studies have been done. We can't do that. Sorry. And the family ends up having to move and to sell the farm because their farm got cut in half, it just wasn't productive anymore. But Robert Caro tells how Robert Moses very well could have moved that highway. And the whole reason it was even going through their farm was because that there was a wealthy community with a golf course, which made more sense to go through for his expressway. But because of the power and the influence of those businessmen that lived there and that frequented that golf course, he was going to go cut through this poorer farm. And he makes the case that Robert Moses wouldn't move a road 1 foot for someone who was poor and that didn't have any influence. So that's my quick overview and summary of The Power Broker. I really can say this is one of my top 10 favorite books. I absolutely loved it. It's a lengthy book, but don't let the length of the book scare you. I personally learned so much from reading this book, and I would recommend it to anybody. So again, let me know what you thought of this video. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and yeah, leave some feedback in the comments for me.